Let's make a deal. You pay me $1,000 and I will make your doors unlock at the touch of a button. If you quote like this, you're going to lose money and reputation. So, should you make some money just for showing up? How does your size up of the property affect the final quote? And do you just quote really high if it is sight unseen? I can quote you one thing right now. I'm Tyler J. Thomas, together with Jeff Moss and handsome Tim Coleman. We are the Three Tumblers. Take a second and think back to your younger years. If someone offered you a job where you could potentially make thousands of dollars, but first you had to pay them money, would you take it? That's essentially the chance us locksmiths take when someone calls us and asks to come out and quote a job. So I think there's three philosophies on this that I've seen locksmiths do. Number one, they charge for quotes. Number two, they don't charge for quotes. Number three, there's somewhere in the middle where they'll charge for quotes, and if the quote is accepted, they'll back that out of the final quote total. So I can see the merits to each of them. Personally, we don't charge for quotes, whether it's one door or 1,000 doors. It's just kind of embedded into the cost of doing business, and we'll make it up. You know, we're restricted keyways, high-end master key system, stuff like that. It's made up on residuals, so your mileage may vary compared to us. Tim, in South Carolina, how do y'all approach quoting?
Again, I don't know how they do it in South Carolina, but up here in North Carolina, just north of the border, at the shop I work for, we don't charge for quotes. We'll go out and, if it's within an acceptable distance of our shop, we'll go out for free and quote the property, quote the job. If is something that's kind of way out there from us, like is going to be an hour and a half job or hour and a half drive just to get there, then we try to find a way to make it worth our while. In other words, we might contact one of our distributor or manufacturer reps and see if they'll drive us, because we also get free lunch normally in the course of doing that. But no, we don't charge for quotes. I do know of a couple locksmiths in the area that will charge for a quote and then deduct that money's paid for that quote from the final invoice. I wouldn't personally, I would not pay somebody who is local just to come out to my house or my business just to quote me for something.
That's another good point too, or reminded me of something, is that sometimes people will offer free quotes, but they will kind of tentatively schedule it the next time they're in the area. So you want to quote on this job? Okay, it may be a week or 2 weeks before I'm in that area for a job, but I will swing by after it because I'm nearby and kind of give it to you on the house or give you a free quote. So that's another, I guess, fourth philosophy. Jeff in beautiful Cleveland, how does your company approach quotes?
It depends. Some stuff we charge, some stuff we don't. But we do. If we do charge, we almost always we only charge. We're going back and we're doing the work. We're not going to charge them another service call. So, it depends on the situation. If it's somebody that's probably not going to use us and is just kicking the tires and wasting our time, then we would probably charge them for a service call to go out and look at it.
Gotcha. So it sounds like we're pretty much all on the same page with our philosophies. Here's another wrench to throw in. When you're doing work for a national service provider, especially on not to exceed jobs, if you clearly see that the work is going to exceed what you've been giving, you kind of have to quote on the fly, give it to them. And if parts are required, you're going to have to go back. Now, I would say that national service providers, in my opinion, don't necessarily deserve any special treatment because you're having to expend labor and time to go out there. And if you have to go out there again, you should charge a second service call because it's not your fault, not your customer directly. so you're not necessarily prepared for what hardware they have on hand. Tim, do y'all do any work for national service providers, NSPs? And if so, how do you handle when something's obviously needs to be quoted? Maybe it's more involved than was originally told or discussed with you, and you're going to have to come back and you're going to have to provide parts.
Oh God, yes. We do NSP work all the time. And there are some NSPs that I don't mind doing for. One of them's actually a slight competitor of yours, but it is one of those things where they set an NTE, and you look at the distance that we're gonna have to drive, and say their NTE is 175, and our trip charge to the location is 150. That's giving you $25, which is probably about a fifth of an hour of labor to go out there. So your entire NTE is eaten up by driving there and then seeing what the hell's the problem, what's going on. And by that time, you have to call back and say, okay, here's what the problem is. You owe me 175 right now. Here's what it's going to cost to do all this, and I'm not going to be able to do it today. So yeah, I mean, we deal with that, and we have done that before. And to their credit, most NSPs are okay as long as you call them and you update them on things and say, this is exactly what I'm going to need. And you're able to give them that quote. Most of the time they will up that. Like, I was on a job just the other day that I'll talk about a little bit later, but it was an NSP job, and I get there and my regular tricks didn't work, and I was going to have to replace the hardware that was on the door. And I called them. Now, it took like 15-20 minutes of phone calling and getting transferred and waiting for approval and everything. But yeah, I got the NTE increase, but I had to give them an exact dollar amount, which meant before I even called them, I had to go through and put in my invoice in Service Fusion, all the parts and labor and everything necessary, and then call them and give them that amount. So, I think that definitely if they give you an initial NTE that barely covers your trip charge, then just use that as a pricing for a quote.
So what you're saying is that you had to acquiesce?
They had to acquiesce to me.
Oh, fair enough. Jeff, you've worked for an NSP, and now you work for somebody that works with NSPs. What can you kind of reveal behind closed doors or shadows that might help locksmiths out as far as navigating not to exceed NTEs or just quoting NSPs in general?
I had nothing to do with that stuff, so I have no inside information. All I did was make the computers work. So
Yeah, fair enough. But at your shop, you obviously work with NTEs or NSPs, correct?
not me, because
Well, your company works with
Yeah.
NSPs. Okay.
yeah, but I don't really handle any of the specifics
No, I see.
other than, boxes of parts coming in and making sure that stuff, matches up. But yeah,
Just kind of on a semi-related tangent, I'm not going to throw the NSP under the bus, but there's one NSP that requires you to maintain inventory of used parts that you pull off the door and replace. Do either of you know who I'm talking about? Don't name them. But number two, do you follow those instructions?
Hey, what the fuck? And no, I've never dealt with them.
Jeff, do you
Yeah.
know who I'm talking about?
nope.
Oh, okay. All right, good. We'll move on. Does anybody have any
That's
final points?
fucking stupid. I mean, they want you to inventory what parts you take off the fucking door.
Yeah.
You'll have to tell us who it is when we're done.
Okay, I'll do that. But yeah, the thought is that at any point they can audit or call for an audit to make sure you still have it on site. And if required, send it back.
No, fuck you.
Yeah.
That was old shit that got pulled off the door and replaced, obviously for good reasons.
Right.
Fuck
If you want it back, you send us a label.
Yeah.
Exactly. Pay for shipping, send us a label, and we'll put it in a box and send it to your ass. Otherwise, no, it went in the trash.
Yeah, I'll kind of go beyond this a little bit. As far as, I guess, we do kind of sort of function as a national service provider. We have customers in about 9 states now that we do work for. One that we do work for or on behalf of does include NTEs, and frankly, we don't care. We never tell any of our contractors because, number one, we don't dictate prices. We tell them charge whatever and we'll bill whatever, and we never ask for an NTE. The second one has a very generous NTE. I mean, decent 4 figures, and when you can tell it's going to be something big, even the subcontractors that we use, the other locksmith companies, they know, hey, this is going to be pretty involved. How about a quote first, and then we get to that point. So I hate NTEs. I understand why they're in place, but I don't follow them. Anyways, did we get your hopes up or down? Up next, Tim is going to be a downer, then give you an upper.
Everyone has had that situation in life where they say, it's not me, it's you. But do we ever give or receive that in the right way? Like we talked about in the last episode, performing a size up is crucial to every job, and that it directly relates to money. So when it comes to jobs, do you quote low and then disappoint by charging more for things you didn't see at first? Or do you quote high and then impress by doing the job more efficiently and charging less? When you go to quote a job, do you quote it to get the job, or do you quote it based on reality? If you get there and you can kind of tell there might be a few things that you need to do extra to make whatever the customer wants work, but you really want to get the job, do you quote it attractively? Or are you just yourself and say, this is going to be a pain in the ass, lady, and quote really high because that's what you're going to charge at the end of it? If you quote high and then come down low, your customer's really going to love you. If you quote high and your customer approves it and you charge high, they're going to pay you because they approve the quote. So in that point of view, it's kind of a win-win. You either build a good customer relationship because you told them what it was going to take in order to get the job done, or you build a customer relationship because you told them what you thought was going to take to get the job done, but it didn't take quite that much, so you save them a little bit of money. On the other hand, if you tell somebody that, oh, it's only going to be a couple $100 to do this, and then you come out at the end of the job and everything's working great, and you say, yes, that'll be $2,000, please, you're not going to get any friends out of that job. Jeff, what do you think about quoting to get the job versus quoting reality?
I mean, you got to quote reality and be honest. It's not my business. I can't just quote them a low price to say that we can do it. That's basically, I would say that's a scammer thing. You say it's $20, and then when you get there, it's actually $220. We would never, we would not do that. If there's an issue and it ends up that, we get out there, we look at it and it's going to be more, then obviously we tell the customer and we get approval before we actually do it. If we're going off of pictures or off of something that they sent in, we'll say this is an estimate only based on what we've been given. Price may increase when we go out in the field, and people understand that.
And you just actually asked or made the point what I was going to ask Tyler. Tyler, there in Alabama, what do you do as far as writing your quotes? Because I know you write quotes out. Do you ever put on there, this price may fluctuate up or down based on the reality of the situation?
If we've got firsthand knowledge of it, if we were the ones that surveyed it, usually no, because we quote according to how we think things are going to be, and we're pretty right with it. But when subcontracting out of state, for example, I always pad it with, a few hundred, maybe $500 and say, hey, look, this is sight unseen. We're going off of somebody else's work. It could be more. We don't know their pricing structure. So, here's sort of a worst case scenario to set a PO at. Almost likely it's going to come in under that, but I just want you to be prepared for it if it doesn't.
Yeah, I had a job recently. It was a commercial office location. And basically, they had one door closer that was shot and a couple others that needed adjusting and some door work, some lever swap outs, etc. Just a bunch of really miscellaneous stuff. And I did a walkthrough, went back to the shop, and within a day or two, I got them a quote sent out. And, we have, like we talked about in the pricing episode, we have itemized labor in addition to our parts. And I put down like 5 hours of miscellaneous labor and detailed under that, this was for this, and this, A, B, C, and D. And I also put a note in there, based on what it takes to correct these issues, this rate may go up or down. I will notify you at time of service. And I think that's pretty fair to say, just by looking at it, not by touching it, but by looking at it in person, this may go up or down. And I think doing stuff like that goes a long way. Tyler, to further on that point, honesty with your customers on labor and materials. Obviously materials are pretty set. Labor is what can fluctuate on quotes, because you can have itemized labor for, say, an exit device install, but you get there and even if you looked at the door yourself beforehand, there are things that can pop out because you don't take the existing device off the door to look at stuff. There's always a monkey to pop out of the wood pile, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jeff says. Yeah, but we're I hate to keep using this excuse, but we're odd ducks where we can make that up or afford to make that up on the residuals. They're locked into our keyway or keyways. And yeah, I'm eating $200 or $2,000 on the onset, but 20, 30, 40 years from now, I'm making that back. So I don't mind it as much. Everybody's not in that particular situation. I understand that. But I'm not more concerned about it than or what maybe others would maybe concerned about it more than I am. I'm not. I fucked up. I lost my ass $2,000, $3,000 on a job, but I've got them locked into a keyway. So the residuals are going to pay me over time and I'll make it back and hopefully learn my lesson.
So yeah, you're making it up in volume.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, as far as quoting just to get the job, I will do that. And I am doing that right now just to lock customers in, because like I said, I know the residuals are going to pay. So we're working on a job right now for $1,500 cores. I'm not going to sell it to them at list. I'm going to sell it to them half off list because my discount's a little bit more than that. So I'm going to be making a little bit of profit on the sale of hardware, but I know the residuals over 10, 20, 30 years is going to more than pay for that markup of 100%. It's going to go way beyond that. So I don't mind taking the hit at the beginning knowing that it locks them in and locks this relationship in to where we're servicing them for 10, 20, 30 years, I'm gonna make a shit ton of money. So I don't need to make the most out of the gate. I'll be happy to make very little out of the gate, knowing that I can establish that relationship and now build on it for 10, 20, 30 years.
But aren't you taking a risk if the person in charge of purchasing gets replaced by somebody who has a buddy that does the same thing that you do? And 5 years from now, they decide that they're not going to use you anymore. They're going to go to another place.
They can do that, but with the Medico contracts, they can't make arbitrary reasons for it. We have to either deny them service or not be responsive in service for someone else to take our keyway. And if obviously we're very responsive, so then their only option going forward is to switch the keyway, which is going to be very cost prohibitive. They're going to have to replace all the cores or at least the plugs to get on somebody else's keyway. So I'm not worried about that. It's down the road. If somebody wants to do that, that's fine. But the costs associated with it, their boss ain't going to approve it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I had the kind of what brought that up yesterday, had a customer that was just up the street from us, called, and they were having some issues with a Adams Right storefront door lock. And in short, the Medico X4 cylinder that they had is provided by one of our competitors. The cam broke off the back of it. And I said, look, you can either call the locksmith shop who installed this originally, who services your keys, etc., because it was on not just that location, but it was a locally franchised location. And I said, they can put this in, or I can put in just a standard Schlage C, or I can put in, some different key. I could have sold them our dealer-based key. I could have sold them our Medico X4, whatever it was. I could have done it, and they probably would have paid for it at that time. And they said, yeah, we don't care. We don't want to use their keys anymore. So, I mean, and Tyler, I know what you deal with is a larger volume base. It's not going to be 2 cylinders on a little restaurant. Jeff, with you're dealing with customers and you're being honest with them about labor and materials. Again, materials are pretty straightforward, but doing stuff in the shop, somebody can bring in like a steering column or an antique lock or something like that. And, are you more likely to quote high and then charge low, or do you just give it to them honestly and say, hey, I'll have this done with 2 hours of labor?
No, I mean, we give them price range, and if it's going to be more, I'll call them and tell them, hey, it's going to take longer. This is what this is what it's worth. This is what it's going to cost to do it. And yeah.
Kind of what we do is, with people bringing stuff into the shop, gumball machines and vending machines and stuff like that, we give them a range. So I think that's the fair way to do it. Say you're looking at anywhere between X and double X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
Have you ever been on a blind date? Maybe you've been on a date where you wished you were blind. No, I have. Up next, Jeff will share his secrets of the sight unseen.
Sometimes locksmithing can be like a blind date. You get that random social media message with just a vague profile picture, then it turns into a chat, and before you know it, you're meeting at the Applebee's down the street. But when you get there and see your date from across the room, you suddenly wish you had sent your high school photo instead of a current one, and not shaved in the last 3 days. Locksmiths have these moments too, so how do you deal with it? Well, we get a lot of phone calls. Do you make keys? Yes. Do you make car keys? Yes. What kind of vehicle is it? Year, make, and model, all that stuff. I always tell people the best thing to do is bring it in, even if they send a picture, there's FCC IDs and chips that need to be read, and bringing it in is the best bet. Same thing with other stuff. I have a broken lock on my front door. Okay. What kind of lock? Well, it's round, it's got a lever, it's got this. Do you have any pictures? No. Why would I do that? So it always makes things easier. And I certainly can't think of pictures making anything more difficult. Tim, Tyler, I know you're not doing nearly, as much shop stuff, but your thoughts?
I am slowly becoming the safe guy in our shop, and having pictures is worth 1,000 words, because people ask all the time, hey, can you help me with this? Well, it depends. I'm only at a very certainly basic level of safe servicing, and I need to know what it is. So before I waste the time of going out to that location to look at that safe with my own two eyes, if I get a picture of it, then I can say yes or no as to if I help with that. But yeah, I mean, pictures will always help. But like you said, any chance that we get to tell a customer, say, hey, bring it into our shop, we're lucky we have a storefront. And if we can get the customer to bring it into our shop and look at it, we can give them a much better price range. And I'll tell people that over the phone all day long, especially when it comes to, locking containers, antique locks, automotive. I don't touch automotive, but I'll always say, hey, bring it in. This is when our automotive tech is going to be in the shop, and she can give a look at it and tell you how much it's going to be.
For sure. Tyler?
Yeah, I don't know how locksmiths function before smartphones. I mean, I kind of got in at the very beginning, so it was easy to take a picture with your phone and send it, email or text or whatever. I couldn't even fathom how to operate a business knowing how much I rely on those pictures, cell phone pictures. God, I'm just fortunate I don't have to deal with it.
Oh, absolutely. So when somebody brings in a weird lock that you think you might be able to make a key for, but you're not sure, how do you quote that? Well, I would sort of figure what our normal labor hour rate is, and maybe, estimate if it's going to take me a half hour altogether, if it's, even serviceable. I usually tell people, hey, a new lock costs this much. It's really not worth doing this unless you have, a bunch of locks that are keyed alike and it's the same key. I wouldn't say it's really antique stuff. It's just like, master padlocks, and somebody finds something sitting around that they haven't had a key for in 20 years. Generally, it's not worth it. If you only have one lock, buy a new lock and go on with your day. It depends if we really want to do the work. If we're busy and we know it's not getting to get done for a while, we might charge a little, tell them it's going to cost more and it's going to take longer. And if they still want to do it, okay, but we're not going to drop everything we're doing for it. It just, once you do it for a while, you sort of figure out, and every shop, I guess, is a little bit different. Friend of mine who moved to Seattle was telling me she went and got some keys made. The locksmith doesn't even do service calls anymore. They only are open in shop. So they just have like Tyler, with established customers that bring stuff in, and that's all they do. They don't want to do service calls. So I guess it just sort of depends, on how you want to do it. You got what are your thoughts? And Tyler, you're not really doing, I guess if somebody wanted to have some sort of special lock figured out or some weird application, I mean, you guys.
Well, here's a thought that you were bringing this up, and it got me thinking. Quoting a job way high so you don't have to deal with it, and we're guilty of that sometimes. We don't want to touch it, but if we're going to touch it, we're going to make it way worth our while. So with the weird locks, whatever that may be, we go way above because we don't really want to touch it. But if they say, yeah, that's fine, money's no object, it's like, all right, well, we're gonna make good money on this.
Yeah.
Tyler, I've done that, and my reaction when they say, "Yeah, well, I guess we're gonna go ahead and bite the bullet and do it," I'm like, "Fuck, fuck."
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely been some of those.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, like what you were saying, if it's something weird, I will give a starting price. Like for old gumball machines or something like that. I'll say, look, I'm gonna have to find a key blank for this. I'm gonna have to see, if I don't have a standard key for this, then I'm gonna have to see how much it's gonna be. This is what you're starting at. This is the fee to pick it and remove the cylinder to where you can get to, the money, the gumballs, whatever. This is where we're gonna start. I will call you when I have a better idea of what it's gonna be, but this is what your starting price is, and it will only go up from there. So you sort of set expectations, but also you need to call your customers and say, hey, this is what we're looking at.
But trust me, they better not. After some of the gumball machines I've seen, they don't want the gumballs.
We've got one in the shop that I picked. Finally picked it open yesterday. I started in the morning and then finished when I got back from all my runs for the day. And my coworker said, "Yeah, the woman said you don't want to eat the gumballs. They're like 25 years old."
Fuck that, I'd eat them.
I don't eat gum.
All right. Well, like I said, every shop is different. Everybody does their things a little bit differently, but we all sort of have a common goal. Well, while Tim's at the Applebee's bar trying to flirt and get a date, Tyler and I are going to quote you our spare parts of the week next.
Between me charging for admission, Tim writing Dear John letters, and Jeff's blind dates, I'm ready for a break. So, let's grab a spare part. Handsome Tim.
All right, guys. So I'm going to show you two my nuts. I know we're pretty good friends, but I've never shown you my nuts before. These nuts I actually just got yesterday. I had a job where I had to drill out a coin box on a laundromat dryer. You can see these nuts right here. These nuts. I was blind drilling for the screws, and you can see where my drill bit's centered on. Just estimating. Doing the scientific wild-ass guess or swag method, I managed to hit the screws dead on. As you can see, Jeff, I will send you a picture of these nuts to post on our Twitter.
Thank you. That made my day.
It was, hey, you're dead on these nuts.
Y'all really, really like these nuts, don't you?
Cafe.
Worked on a pretty cool old Buick this week, and I posted a picture online. Somebody said it looks exactly like the trunk that they put the guy's body in at Goodfellas. So, old cars in the 70s where the car was like half trunk. Guy needed keys made for it. He only had a key for the ignition. So we actually had to open the glove box, and it was old enough that the code was still on it once you pulled the plug out, and made a key, and it worked the doors and the trunk perfectly for being almost 50 years old.
Watch this, guys. I'm going to make Jeff cuss. Before they put the guy in the truck, what did he say?
I don't remember which one.
Oh, yeah, I think you do. He said something to Joe Pesci's character.
Get your fucking shine box.
There you go.
It was back when the cars were longer than cold weather and the doors were 8 feet thick.
Fuck, I don't have a spare part. Medico's gotten really good with as far as getting materials out. So I guess their supplier is back out and handling things, and I'm happy.
Here's hoping, because I know you haven't been too happy.
Yeah. As always, if you have any hate mail or love letters for us, write them on the back of a $20 bill and email it. I don't know how the fuck you email a $20 bill to 3tumblerspod@gmail.com, or tag us. No, don't tag us. Follow us on Twitter at the number 3 Tumblers Pod. Now, I see we're getting hundreds of listeners a week. I need more followers at the number 3 Tumblers Pod. Executive producer, that's me, Tyler J. Thomas. Technical producer is Jeff Moss. Writer and editor is handsome Tim Coleman. Tim's life coach, Amanda Hugginkiss. The regional director of Atlanta is Frank Lee Scarlett. And our chief legal counsel, and I'm going to fuck this up as I always do, Hugh Lewis Dewey of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, otherwise known to his bookies as Huey Louie Dewey. Didn't fuck it up.
You didn't fuck it up.
My name's Jeff.
His name? Jeff. This has been a Three Tumblers production, Season 1. Copyright 2023, all rights reserved. Find this episode and others wherever you get your podcasts.